Picture 1940. The morning air over Britain crackles as RAF fighters scramble into action. Something's coming that will flip aerial warfare upside down. Radio frequencies explode with confused reports from veteran pilots. "They're way too fast," comes through the static from multiple squadrons at once. These battle-hardened aircrews aren't seeing just another German bombing raid. They're watching the debut of an aircraft so advanced it'll rewrite combat aviation overnight. This is the Junkers U-88, Nazi Germany's smartest aviation win and biggest strategic mess-up, rolled into one sleek package. Here's how cutting-edge engineering built a machine that scared 3 continents, then ate itself alive. You're about to discover why this single aircraft became the Luftwaffe's scariest weapon, and why that reputation killed it. Something wild was happening at the Junkers factory in Dessau, Germany in 1936. While everyone else stuck to old-school thinking, German engineers were about to blow up every rule of military aviation. The idea was ridiculous. Build one plane that could bomb, fight, and spy better than anything else in the sky. Every other country made separate planes for different jobs. But the U-88 would make them all look ancient. Ernst Zindel's team wasn't just thinking differently. They were trashing the rulebook altogether. Every part was designed for maximum flexibility while keeping top performance across multiple combat roles. The prototype looked like it came from the future. Clean lines replaced the chunky designs everyone else was building, while smart engineering promised performance that sounded impossible. The U-88 V1 took its first flight on December 21, 1936, and immediately showed off abilities. This wasn't gradual progress, it was a massive jump forward. Test flights hit numbers so good that even German engineers double-checked their instruments. The plane they'd built would soon prove their wildest dreams were too conservative. The U-88's speed seemed fake even to the Germans who built it. When tests showed a bomber hitting 470 kilometers per hour, 292 miles per hour, it broke every assumption about what aircraft could do. Allied intelligence threw the first reports in the trash. No bomber could outrun their best fighters. The math just didn't work. But RAF Fighter Command learned the scary truth fast. Their defense systems, built to stop slow targets, became useless against planes that just accelerated away from trouble. The speed wasn't just about running away. During bombing runs, U-88s hit targets so fast that ground defenses barely got a shot off before the planes vanished. Even crazier, this incredible speed came with full bomb loads. The U-88 carried serious destructive power, while moving faster than most fighters of the time. Anti-aircraft gunners faced an impossible job. Their job was to hit targets that moved too fast for their equipment to track. By the time guns locked on, the U-88s had dropped their bombs and disappeared. The psychological hit on defenders was instant and brutal. Normal tactics stopped working overnight, forcing a complete reorganization to handle something nobody had seen before. The U-88's scariest trick wasn't speed or firepower. It was becoming whatever the Luftwaffe needed. This shape-shifting ability kept Allied forces guessing, kept them unprepared. U-88A bombers dropped up to 3,000 kilograms of explosives. That's about 6,600 pounds, though typical loads were around 1,500 to 2,000 kilograms, or 3,300 to 4,400 pounds for better performance. Their speed allowed them to try attack patterns conventional bombers couldn't dream of. Heavy fighter versions packed multiple cannons and machine guns, switching from innocent-looking aircraft to deadly interceptors in seconds. Allied pilots never knew if approaching U-88s carried bombs or weapons meant to shred them. Night fighter versions were the most sinister evolution. Radar-equipped hunters tracked and killed aircraft in total darkness with spooky accuracy. Reconnaissance versions used speed to penetrate deep into enemy territory, while staying almost impossible to catch. Their photos gave German commanders detailed intel on Allied positions and movements. Anti-shipping versions turned ocean crossings into nightmares for merchant ships and convoys. These hunters appeared from nowhere. They then delivered devastating attacks and vanished before the escorts could respond. Each version kept what made the U-88 effective while adding specialized gear for specific jobs. This flexibility allowed Luftwaffe units to reconfigure quickly without major retraining. Under the U-88's threatening looks sat innovations that gave German crews big advantages over Allied opponents. These weren't minor upgrades. They were breakthrough technologies that changed aerial combat. An advanced autopilot lets pilots focus on fighting, while the aircraft maintains precise paths automatically. This tech was years ahead of anything Allied forces had early in the war, though it wasn't as revolutionary as some other innovations. Variable pitch props optimized performance across different flight situations, from takeoff to combat moves. The U-88 adjusted prop settings for maximum efficiency in any situation, giving performance edges that the Allied aircraft couldn't match. Smart radio and navigation gear turned the U-88 into a precision tool that worked in any weather. German crews pulled off complex missions that Allied forces couldn't achieve. Modular weapons allow rapid switching for different mission types. Bomb racks were swapped for cannons, cameras replaced weapons, and specialized equipment was installed for unique jobs. Later versions carried cutting-edge radar that seemed supernatural to Allied aircrew. These electronic detection systems tracked targets through darkness, clouds, and bad weather with crazy accuracy. The structure used advanced building techniques that gave exceptional strength without extra weight. This let the aircraft handle tremendous combat stress while staying light enough for superior performance. The U-88's impact on Atlantic shipping turned every ocean crossing into a deadly lottery, where destruction dropped from clear skies without warning. These weren't random hits. They were planned campaigns to choke Allied supply lines. Specialized anti-ship versions carried weapons built to wreck vessels efficiently. Armor-piercing bombs punched through ship hulls before exploding in vital areas, while skip bombing bounced explosives straight into target hulls. The plane's incredible speed made normal convoy defenses completely useless. Naval escorts designed for submarine threats couldn't handle aerial attackers that struck and escaped before effective fighting back was possible. High-speed recon flights gave German U-boat commanders exact convoy locations and routes. This aerial intel multiplied submarine effectiveness by removing guesswork from finding targets across huge ocean stretches. Convoy protection strategies, carefully developed over years of anti-submarine warfare, became worthless against three-dimensional threats. Allied naval commanders found themselves fighting battles they weren't equipped for. The mental impact on merchant crews was harsh and lasting. Sailors who'd learned to handle underwater threats now faced terror from above, creating stress that hurt operational effectiveness. Sea operations that used to be relatively safe during daylight became dangerous at any time. The U-88's ability to strike without warning made every moment of Atlantic crossings a potential death encounter. When the U-88 hit the Eastern Front in June 1941, it found conditions that let its full destructive power loose. Soviet air defenses, weakened by leadership purges and stuck with obsolete aircraft, gave virtually no effective opposition. The systematic wrecking of Soviet aviation became one of the most one-sided aerial campaigns. U-88 formations approached airfields at high speed, destroyed dozens of aircraft with precision bombing, and escaped before the Soviets could respond. Individual German squadrons achieved destruction numbers that seemed impossible. Single attack missions eliminated more Soviet aircraft than the entire Allied air forces owned, showing the crushing technological advantage the U-88 provided. Close air support operations showcased the aircraft's versatility in the most devastating way. Defensive positions that took weeks to build vanished within minutes under precisely delivered bombing that left no chance for countermeasures. The speed advantage was so overwhelming, many Soviet defensive efforts never got to engage their attackers. By the time radar operators spotted incoming formations and fighters scrambled, the U-88 had finished their jobs and disappeared. Intel gathering gave German commanders detailed reconnaissance that made Soviet defensive planning nearly impossible. High-speed photo missions penetrated deep into enemy territory, while staying immune to interception. The mental impact on Soviet ground forces was deep and lasting. Clear skies became associated with inevitable destruction, forcing tactical changes that significantly hurt operational effectiveness across entire front sections. As Allied bombing campaigns ramped up, the U-88 evolved into something even more deadly: the perfect night predator. These radar-equipped hunters transformed darkness from protective cover into a killing field. They could track Allied bombers from miles away and position themselves for attacks that defensive gunners couldn't see coming. The Schräge Musik upward-firing cannons were diabolically clever. German pilots would slip underneath bomber formations, invisible to the gunners above, and fire directly into fuel tanks and engines. The first sign of trouble for Allied crews was often their aircraft exploding around them. Night bombing missions went from relatively safe to absolutely terrifying. Crews knew they were being stalked by nearly invisible killers with superior technology, and there wasn't much they could do except hope they weren't the ones selected for termination. Here's where the U-88 story takes its most dramatic and devastating turn. The very versatility that made it so feared also held the seeds of its destruction, a fatal flaw hidden inside its greatest strength. German leadership got drunk on the aircraft's multi-role abilities. If the U-88 could do every mission well, why not make it do every mission perfectly? This seemingly smart thinking would prove catastrophically wrong. The demand for specialized versions spiraled entirely out of control. What started as elegant multi-role flexibility became a production nightmare, with dozens of different configurations, each needing unique parts and assembly procedures. Every new version meant stopping production lines, changing equipment, and retraining workers. German factories spent more time switching configurations than building aircraft, while Allied manufacturers perfected mass production of standardized designs. The complexity that made individual U-88s so capable made the entire program industrially impossible. Each specialized version needed different materials, tools, and expertise that German industry couldn't provide simultaneously across multiple configurations. Quality control became impossible across so many different versions. Aircraft that once represented precision engineering started leaving factories with known problems because meeting production quotas beat maintaining standards. The strategic blindness was breathtaking. While German engineers designed their 20th minor variant, Allied manufacturers were developing new generations of specialized aircraft, optimized for specific roles. Behind the impressive front of German tech sophistication lay an industrial disaster that worsened every month. The U-88 program went from engineering triumph to manufacturing catastrophe that ate resources while delivering declining effectiveness. German factories found themselves trying to build almost everything and anything. Bombers, fighters, night fighters, recon aircraft, and specialized versions, you name it, using the same basic airframe. This approach created logistical nightmares that made efficient production impossible. Each version changeover required complete retooling of assembly lines, switching specialized equipment, and retraining workers for different procedures. Production efficiency crashed, as factories spent more time preparing for new configurations than actually building aircraft. Allied bombing hit the exact industrial centers needed for U-88 manufacturing. Each successful raid didn't just destroy finished aircraft. It shattered the complex supply chains and specialized facilities required for sophisticated production. Raw material shortages forced continuous design compromises that hurt aircraft performance and reliability. Parts that should have been made with high-grade materials increasingly got manufactured with inferior substitutes that reduced operational effectiveness. The skilled workforce crisis proved even more devastating than material shortages. Experienced aircraft workers were conscripted for military service and replaced by hastily trained personnel who couldn't maintain the quality standards for complex aircraft manufacturing. By 1944, newly manufactured U-88s left factories with significant problems, because the alternative was a complete production shutdown. The precision that made the aircraft so effective got systematically sacrificed to meet impossible manufacturing demands. The most devastating problem wasn't mechanical, it was human. The U-88 was a sophisticated machine that required months of specialized training to use effectively. As experienced pilots died faster than they could be replaced, this sophistication became a liability. New crews arrived at combat units barely able to fly straight and level, let alone exploit advanced navigation systems or complex weapons. The multi-role capabilities that made the U-88 so dangerous required expertise that simply didn't exist anymore. Fuel shortages meant even less training time. It became a death spiral. Inadequate preparation led to higher loss rates, creating greater demand for even more hastily trained replacements, resulting in progressively worse performance. Meanwhile, Allied pilots were getting better training, more flight time, and aircraft designed to be operated effectively with less specialized knowledge. When the U-88 first appeared over European skies, Allied pilots didn't know what hit them. But here's the thing about warfare: adapt or die. And boy, did the Allies adapt. Every time they managed to shoot down or capture a U-88, teams of engineers swarmed over it, just like kids with a new toy. They measured everything, tested everything, pulled apart every bolt and wire. Nothing escaped their attention. This wasn't just curiosity, it was survival. Armed with this intelligence, Allied aircraft designers got to work. The result? Fighters that could not only match the Ju-88's performance, but blow it out of the sky. The P-51 Mustang became a legend for good reason, while upgraded Spitfires turned German advantages into weaknesses. When jets entered the picture, the writing was on the wall. But the real game changer? Electronic warfare. German radar operators who once held all the cards suddenly found themselves playing blind. Allied scientists had cracked their codes, jammed their signals, and turned their own technology against them. The hunters became the hunted. Meanwhile, Allied commanders weren't sitting around waiting for better planes. They studied German tactics, identified patterns, and developed strategies specifically designed to exploit every weakness they could find. Formation flying, attack angles, defensive maneuvers, everything got reimagined. Intelligence networks fed crucial information back to Allied forces. When and where German aircraft would appear, how they operated, what their limitations were. Knowledge became power, and the Allies wielded it expertly. By 1944, the tables had completely turned. Aircraft that once ruled the skies were being shot down faster than Germany could replace them. Superior numbers, better equipment, and smarter tactics had shifted the balance permanently. Here's where the U-88 story gets really interesting and tragic. What looked like Nazi Germany's masterstroke turned out to be a perfect example of how brilliant engineering can't fix fundamental strategic mistakes. Think about it. Germany poured resources into creating this incredible multi-role aircraft, while completely ignoring whether they could actually build enough of them. The multi-role concept that seemed so clever in peacetime became a liability in total war. While German engineers tried to make one plane do everything reasonably well, the Allies built specialized aircraft that excelled at specific jobs. Their bombers were purpose-built for bombing. Their fighters lived to fight, and each did their job better than the U-88 ever could. Manufacturing became Germany's Achilles heel. Building complex, variable aircraft requires time, expertise, and resources that Germany simply didn't have as the war dragged on. Every variant meant new tooling, new training, new complications. Meanwhile, Allied factories perfected mass production, churning out thousands of effective, if simpler, aircraft. Then there's the human factor. Operating sophisticated aircraft requires skilled pilots and maintainers, expertise that takes years to develop. As experienced crews were lost, Germany couldn't replace them fast enough. All the advanced technology in the world means nothing if nobody knows how to use it properly. The irony is crushing. The U-88 often won individual battles while losing the war. Each tactical success highlighted the strategic failure. Having the best tool doesn't matter if you can't make enough of them or train enough people to use them effectively. By war's end, the U-88 had become a symbol of German engineering ambition colliding with harsh reality. Beautiful on paper, devastating in small numbers, but ultimately inadequate for the scale of conflict Germany had initiated. The Junkers U-88 teaches us that wars aren't won in engineering labs, they're won in factories, training grounds, and strategic planning rooms. Technical superiority means nothing without the industrial muscle to exploit it and the strategic wisdom to use it effectively. Germany's wonder weapon mentality perfectly captured their fundamental misunderstanding of modern warfare. While they chased perfection in individual platforms, their enemies focused on sustainable, scalable solutions that could be produced and operated at the massive scale total war demanded. The U-88 story isn't just about aircraft. It's about the danger of falling in love with your own cleverness while ignoring practical limitations. Sometimes good enough, produced in overwhelming numbers, beats perfect every single time. So there you have it, the rise and fall of one of World War II's most fascinating aircraft. The U-88 proved that in warfare, just like in life, execution matters more than innovation. And even more, sustainability beats perfection. What did you think of this deep dive? If you're as fascinated by these wartime engineering stories, hit that like button. Subscribe for more incredible tales of innovation, strategy, and the machines that changed history.